Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome today's guest speaker. お写真撮る方、前の方どうぞ。お写真撮る方、日本報道の方のカメラだけでお願いいたします。この辺でよろしいでしょうか。
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Foreign Correspondents Club of Japan. I'm Dan Sloan, president of this organization. We'd like to thank you for braving the weather and also not watching the World Cup Japan game to join us today. Good outcome, ultimately. We are honored to welcome again a return visit by our guest today, former Prime Minister Fumio Kishida, who served in the role from 2021 until his resignation in 2024. He also has represented the Hiroshima 1st District in the House of Representatives since 1993. Please turn off your phones if you haven't already. He joins us as the former premier and foreign minister re-emerged as an influential voice in Japanese diplomacy, recently calling for joint projects with South Korea, as well as visiting the Philippines 1 month ago as a special envoy of Prime Minister Takeichi to discuss bilateral ties and regional cooperation. The former Prime Minister also serves as chairman of the LDP's Japan-Iran Parliamentary Friendship League, and perhaps may share his thoughts today on the MOU to end the Iran war, as well as the role Japan may play in the planned $300 billion reconstruction of the Islamic Republic. He wears a number of other hats, including as Supreme Advisor to the Parliamentary League for AZEC, which is the Asia Zero Emission Community, which is a framework for decarbonizing the region. In terms of his background, our 68-year-old guest started his international ways at an elementary school in Queens, New York. PS20 and I believe also PS13. I learned this from watching him as Prime Minister address both houses of Congress. He told that audience that he apparently was a Mets and Yankees fan, which would have been a true diplomatic feat, even at that age. He returned to Japan for junior and senior high school in Tokyo, and then Waseda University. He speaks now to us at a time when eyes are on Japan and its role ahead in global affairs as war continues in Ukraine and reconstruction awaits for a number of war-torn locations. As a Hiroshima native, he is a firm advocate of nuclear non-proliferation in a time when the stockpiles of nuclear weapons in North Asia are growing. And some calls, even here in Japan, are emerging that the country should consider changing its nuclear policies. We are honored to welcome him again to the FCCJ, so with no further ado, Prime Minister Kishida.
Thank you, Mr. Sloan, for a kind introduction. And thank you for having me today. It's a great pleasure to be back here at FCCJ. My last visit here was in 2021. At that time, I was not yet Prime Minister. I was a candidate running for the Liberal Democratic Party's presidential election. Nearly 5 years have passed since then. The world has gone through great transformation. In fact, It's no exaggeration to say that we have experienced the paradigm shift. 1 month after the press conference in this room, I became Japan's 100th Prime Minister. For more than 3 years, I shouldered the responsibility of steering our nation through a period of the profound change. In that sense, this venue is a very auspicious place for me. By the way, the case you may be wondering, just to be clear, I'm not coming back here because I want to be back as Prime Minister. I had the privilege of representing Japan on the front lines, first as Foreign Minister for 4 years and 8 months, and then as Prime Minister. So, today, let me be candid in sharing my perspectives about the state of the world, about the challenges confronting the international community, and about the path Japanese diplomacy should take in the years ahead. Please allow me to begin by reflecting on the broader trend of the recent history. After the end of the Cold War, the world had enjoyed a brief period of calm. The United States stood the center of the international order. America's power was unparalleled, so was its capacity to create barriers and address challenges in driving prosperity worldwide. We had reaped benefits from that stability, yet the world did not stand still. China's military and economic rise transformed the strategic landscape. Conflicts spread across regions. Many of them were fueled by inequality and division. Global challenges became rampant. Frustration grew. The balance of power shifted. Then came an inflection point, as we witnessed in recent years: Russia's invasion of Ukraine. A permanent member of the United Nations Security Council violated the fundamental principle of the international order, the prohibition against changing the status quo by force. More than 4 years later, the fighting is still ongoing. The consequences extend far beyond Ukraine. The foundation of the post-war international order is undermined. In my view, we saw an end to the post-Cold War. Today, we stand at the crossroads, a crossroads that will shape the next chapter of human history. Here, we confront the following questions. Can we reverse the centrifugal forces pulling the world apart? By doing so, can we restore peace and stability? What kind of the world will we leave to our children and to our grandchildren? These are no longer abstract questions. They are defining questions of our time. The time has come for us to think deeply, and to translate into action with conviction. Let me touch on another major development. President Trump returned to office. America First is once again a central theme of America's foreign policy. What some are calling the adoption of the Monroe Doctrine as the U.S. new foreign policy is also attracting attention. Critics argue that the United States is now dismantling the very international order that Washington led forging after World War II. However, we should view the current situation with a broader perspective. President Trump's policies continue to draw support among American people. This is an important fact. For that reason, I do not see what's happening today simply as a temporary phenomenon driven by personality of one leader. I see it as something deeper, something more structural, a trend that the United States and indeed the wider international community will continue to confront in the years ahead. We should approach it with clear eyes and with a sense of resolve. Turning our eyes to many parts of the world, political forces on the far right have gained momentum. In some societies, exclusionary and inward-looking ideas are finding a larger audience. These developments deserve our attention because they shed light on the frustrations and anxieties that exist beneath the surface of today's international order. The world will remain ever-changing, and so will its demographics. Over the next 50 years, Japan and many advanced economies will experience aging populations and declining birth rates. Meanwhile, countries across Asia and Africa will tap into their greater economic potentials. That is the future taking shape before us. So, what path should Japan choose? My answer is straightforward. We stand firmly for the rule of law, for multilateralism, for freedom, for democracy, for free and open trade. We forge partnerships based on those values. We rally countries together, and we serve as a bridge between them. That is the role Japan should play. For an island nation like Japan, with few natural resources and not that vast domestic market, we cannot safeguard our own future without these principles and values. As we are always reminded of, the international community is not always kind to us. At times, it can resemble a world of the law of the jungle. In the face of that, Japan must also pursue our national interests with determination. In this regard, it is up to the responsibility of political leaders to deal wisely with major powers, to protect the lives of our people, the livelihoods, and our national interests. In summarizing the diplomacy Japan needs to undertake in two phrases, it will be these: pursuing ideals and responding to the reality with wisdom and determination. Both matter. Neither is sufficient on its own. Japan needs both. The future of Japanese diplomacy lies in the synergy of these two qualities. Diplomacy grounded in principles and guided by clear understanding of natural interest. What then should we do? How do we put these ideas into practice? First, at a time when the international order is under strain, we must offer people something to rally around. We need ideas that bring in people together, ideas that restore stability. At the center of these ideas must be human dignity. We all live on the same planet. We all share the same future. In that sense, we are fellow passengers in the same boat. We must work together to protect our lives and our prosperity. This is why Japan has long championed the concept of human security. It is why we uphold the principles and values enshrined in the UN Charter. The world should return to those foundations. The vision Japan have advocated over the decade, a free and open Indo-Pacific, known as FOIP, is rooted in this very thinking. Its premise is simple: strengthen connectivity, promote prosperity, reject coercion and intimidation, and nurture a region that respects freedom and rule of law. Back in March 23, I traveled to Ukraine in secret. The pressure was enormous. I turned out to be the first post-war Japanese prime minister to visit an active war zone. With only a few staff, I quietly left my hotel room in India at night. From New Delhi, I hopped on a chartered small plane to fly straight to Poland. Then I made a quick drive down to a frontier station where I boarded a night train, and 10 hours later, I arrived in Kyiv. There, I conveyed Japan's unwavering solidarity to President Zelensky, and I invited him to Hiroshima to join the G7 summit in May of that year. Then I said, Ukraine today may be East Asia tomorrow. Russia's invasion was a stark reminder that the security of Europe and the Atlantic and the security of the Indo-Pacific are inseparable to each other. That conviction led me to take part in the NATO summit in June 2022 as the first Japanese prime minister ever to do so. I devoted my personal efforts to advancing the ties between Japan and NATO. Let me also touch on the G7 Hiroshima summit. Leaders from the G7 gathered there. So did leaders from Ukraine and from leading countries of the global south, including India, Indonesia, and Brazil. They represented different regions of the world, They brought diverse perspectives. Yet we sat down next to each other and shared one common table. And through frank discussions at the leaders' level, we demonstrated our collective resolve, a resolve to uphold a free and open international order, a resolve grounded in the rule of law. As I speak about the importance of bridge building, allow me turn to a subject that has been my life's work: nuclear disarmament. I'm a politician from Hiroshima. That fact has shaped my personal views throughout my political career. The G7 Hiroshima summit carried a special personal weight for me. It was an opportunity to send a message from Hiroshima to the world, a message of determination, a message to pursue a world without nuclear weapons. Yet, I have always been conscious of another reality. As Prime Minister, I was tasked with daunting responsibility, a responsibility to protect the lives and properties of the Japanese people at all times, under all circumstances. East Asia today faces the most severe security environment of the post-war era. This is reality. Thus, Japan needs to reinforce our own defense capabilities and make the Japan-US alliance even stronger. At the same time, we should not abandon the idea of pursuing a world without nuclear weapons. That is our aspiration. That is our responsibility. That is our ideal. The reality surrounding nuclear weapons today is undeniably severe. The war in Ukraine, instability in the Middle East, North Korea's nuclear and missile programs. None of these developments give us a reason for optimism. The international non-proliferation regime is grappling with serious challenges as well. The conundrum surrounding the NPT regime has become increasingly evident. The point I hope to convey to you is this: reality and ideal are not mutually exclusive. We do not have to choose one over the other. The question is not which side to take. Rather, the question is how to connect them. How do we bring the reality closer to the ideal? How do we build a roadmap that takes us there? This conviction led me to participate in the NPT Review Conference in 2022, the first Japanese Prime Minister ever to do so. There, I presented what became known as the Hiroshima Action Plan. The plan identified 5 practical steps. Non-use of nuclear weapons, greater transparency regarding nuclear forces, continued reduction in nuclear stockpile, non-proliferation and the peaceful use of nuclear energy and encouraging visits by leaders and others to Hiroshima and Nagasaki. These 5 practical steps. Each step may seem modest, but progress is built step by step, and each and every step helps narrow the gap between the reality and the ideal. That is how the ideal is achieved. At the G7 Hiroshima Summit, we took another step forward. For the first time in history, the G7 issued a standalone document on nuclear disarmament, the Hiroshima Vision on Nuclear Disarmament. I also invited G7 leaders and guest leaders to visit the Hiroshima Peace Memorial Museum. They witnessed firsthand the reality of the atomic bombings and listened to the voice of survivors, hibakusha, who long desire peace. And they carried those voices back to the world. I do not regard the world without nuclear weapons as a fantasy. I regard it as an ideal. And an ideal is meant to be pursued for our children, for our grandchildren, and for generations that follow, step by step, realistically, but without ever losing sight of the destination. And let me also say a few words about our relations with the United States. The Japan-US alliance has been the cornerstone of Japan's security and prosperity. It was also contributed enormously to ensuring peace and stability across the Indo-Pacific and beyond. We must continue to preserve and reinforce this alliance. 2 years ago, in April, I was invited to visit the United States, and during my stay there, I stood before a joint meeting of the U.S. Congress. I highlighted America's role in the world. I wanted to address those Americans who feel the loneliness and the exhaustion of being the country that has upheld the international order almost single-handedly. It is a heavy burden to carry such hopes on their shoulders. There was yet another message I hoped American people would take away from my speech. Japan stands with America. The United States should not be expected to do it all, unaided and on their own for defending the international order and values. I did not say that out of my strong attachment to the United States, nor out of a desire to follow the lead of America. The defense of freedom, democracy, and the rule of law is the national interest of Japan. Upholding these values is both a course and a benefit for our two countries. We must not leave our children a society where human rights are suppressed, where political self-determination is denied, where our lives are put under the constant watch of authoritarian regime. America's leadership remains indispensable, and the United States needs trusted friends, Japan is proud to be the United States' closest friend, Tomodachi. During my speech, which lasted merely 35 minutes, congressional members across the aisle rose to their feet more than 15 times for a big applause. I took that as a positive sign that my message was well received. Looking ahead, our bilateral alliance will remain essential for safeguarding the stability and prosperity of Japan, as well as in the Pacific and beyond. In my opening statement, I outlined my perspectives on the state of the world and on the path Japanese diplomacy should take in the time to come. The international community faces profound challenges. The forces pulling countries apart are formidable. Those forces should be stopped. The course needs to be reversed. Japan must continue to play our part. We must contribute to stability in the international community, advance partnerships, and build bridges. And we must continue to uphold the principles that have underpinned peace and prosperity for generations. At the same time, Japan must pursue our national interests with determination in relations with those major powers that seek to change the status quo by force. That is the diplomacy our time demands. That is the responsibility of our own generation. And that is the responsibility we owe to the generations that follow. With that, I will conclude my remarks. And now, I would like to respond to questions from the floor. From this point, I was speaking Japanese through interpreter. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Prime Minister. We have a very crowded room today, full of journalists. We also are live streaming on YouTube, and we're getting already questions from our online audience. I will recognize you in order. Please identify yourself and your organization. Please, only one question and absolutely no speeches. Karen, we'll give you the first question.
ラジオフランスの特派員で西村と申します。よろしくお願いします。高市政権の政策についてお聞きします。半年で成立された法案、あるいは、審議中の法案、を見たら、例えば、衆議院議員の定数削減および、国旗、損害財法案とか、高市政権の優先順位、国民の日常生活の課題と離れてるんじゃないかと思われますけれども、岸田元総理大臣としてはどう見てますか。
Thank you very much. I'm Nishimura from Radio France, and I have a question in regards to the current Takaichi administration. Some 6 months in office and looking at the legislation and the bills that are being passed, and also those being deliberated. I see, and for example, the lower house, first, the bill on reducing the number of died seats, and also a bill on the destruction of the Japanese flag. So looking at the priority of these policies and bills that are being put to the table, I think they are distant from everyday life of the Japanese people. So as former Prime Minister, how do you take this situation?
はい、ご質問ありがとうございました。高市総理は今年の2月行われた選挙で、歴史的な大勝利を得ました。 そして、高い支持率を国民から得ています。私は国のリーダーとして、こうした選挙の結果、そして高い支持率、これはまさに政治的な資産であると思います。大事なのは、この政治資産をどのように使うのかということだと私は思っています。そこまで言います。はい。
And thank you very much for the question. Now, looking at the Takaichi administration, Prime Minister Takaichi, she was elected in February of this year. She won through a landslide victory, a historical victory. And also, she is currently enjoying a very high approval rating. So, as a national leader, the fact that she won overwhelmingly and also the fact that she is enjoying such a high approval rating is something that should be regarded as a political asset. Now, I believe that the question and what will be key is how she uses this political asset.
歴代の日本の政権も同様ですが、選挙の結果とこの、大きな、政治的な資産を得たとしても、具体的な課題を解決すると、その課題には必ず反対もつきまといます。この政治資産をだんだんと目減りさせていく、使っていくということになります。
But looking at past administrations, likewise, we have seen that they achieved certain election results and have enjoyed political assets. But having gained these assets, once they start to address specific issues, they're bound to be opponents. And as a result, these assets start to diminish.
そして、今、高市総理は、その政治資産を今、ご質問の中にあったような課題に使っているということですが、ぜひ引き続き国民の高い支持を得ていくためには、より国民の身近な課題にもその政治資産を使うべく振り向けていくことも大事ではないかと思います。
And looking at Prime Minister Takaichi now, she has been using her political assets on some of the issues that you raised. And I hope that she will continue to maintain her high approval rating from the public by using these political assets on issues that are close to the Japanese people.
自分の政治信念としてやるべき課題について取り組むことも大事ですし、国民の生活あるいは経済にとって大事な課題について取り組んで、政治資産を使っていくということも大事です。いずれにせよ、その時のリーダーの考え方が問われることになるんだと思います。
So, of course, on the one hand, it's important for the political leader to address those issues which he or she has political conviction on. But at the same time, it's necessary for these leaders to address issues which are related to people's lives and also the economy as well. So this is also important that the political asset be used for these purposes. And this is where the Prime Minister will be questioned as to his or her thinking.
香港フェニックステレビのリーと申します。岸田総理退任されて本日こうして特派員協会で外国メディアと会見されることはきっとお伝えしたいメッセージが終わりだというふうに受け止めて期待しております。で、宏池会が今まで日中関係についてお尋ねしたいんですが、日中の中で対話やその橋渡しの役割を果たしてこられたと思いますが、岸田総理も総理在任中、この方針を受け継いでこられたと思います。そして今、自民党の中でほとんど日中の改善、そして対話、また友好を語る有力な議員はほとんど見当たりません。岸田総理はですね、この状況、首脳同士の対話が中止をし、観光客も激減し、人的交流も激減し、影響が広がっている一方だと見ています。そして、この日本の対中外交の方向性、間違った方向に進んでいないのでしょうか。で、今後どうやって中国と向き合うべきなのか、率直なお考えをお聞かせください。
Yes, I'm Lee from Hong Kong, and I'd like to ask you about the following. First of all, you have already stepped down as Prime Minister, and the fact that you are facing the media here today, I think that you have a message that you wish to deliver to the media. So that is my expectation today. Now, I'm talking about the Japan-China relations. We have, you have served as a bridge between the two countries to promote dialogue, and but now currently, we are seeing few parliamentarians and lawmakers here in Japan and the LDP. I'm talking about improving bilateral relations, promoting dialogue, and friendship between Japan and China. So, there is no talk between the leaders of the two countries. We're seeing tourists, a number of tourists coming from China going down. There are lesser people-to-people exchanges. The impact is spreading. Now, having said so, how do you see the current direction towards diplomacy vis-a-vis China? Do you think that it's going in the wrong direction? Can you share with us your candid opinion as to how you should be facing, or the Japan should be facing up to this situation?
はい、ご質問ありがとうございました。まず、私は日本と中国との関係、隣国でもあり、そして例えば日本にとって最大の貿易相手国は中国です。中国にとって第2の貿易相手国は日本です。とうとう経済をはじめさまざまな関係においてこの2つの国はこの大変重要な関係を作っていると思っています。だからこそ対話が重要だということで、私も習近平国家主席とは2度 APEC の機会等で会談を行いました。また李強首相とも ASEAN や日中韓サミット等で会談をするなど対応を続けてきました。この対話が大事だということは強く感じています。
Yes, and thank you very much for that question. Now, first talking about the Japan-China relations. China is a neighbor of Japan, and for example, if you look at Japan's trade with China, China is the #1 trade partner for Japan, and for China, Japan is the #2 trade partner. So you can see that we have very close connections economically and also on various fronts. Two relations, bilateral relations, are of utmost importance. So we have been building such a relationship in the past, and that is the reason why it is all that more important to engage in dialogue. I personally have talked with President Xi Jinping, twice at APEC and others, and also I've talked with Premier Lee at ASEAN and also the Japan-China South Korea Summit. So I have held these dialogues with my Chinese counterparts.
対話を通じて日本と中国の関係を安定させるということは、両国の国益だけではなくして、国際社会や地域の平和や安定にも大きな影響を及ぼすことになると思っています。
And so it is important through a dialogue that we engage and so that we can stabilize the relations between our two countries. And this will benefit not only our national interests, but also the national community, as well as bringing about stability and peace in the region.
しかし、その中にあって、今おっしゃるように、日中関係の対話を担うこの人物がどんどんと少なくなっている、そういう現実があります。また対話自体がこの厳しい状況の中でなかなか行われない、こういった状況になっている、このことは私も残念に思います。
But having said that, still, we currently see that there are few people who are willing to engage in dialogue between our two countries, Japan and China. The number is decreasing, and so this is a reality that we face. And also, given these very stringent conditions, we are seeing very few dialogue taking place between the two. So I do regret to see that this is the current situation.
大変厳しい状況にあるのはご指摘のとおりではありますが、だからこそ、この対話の努力、決して国のレベルだけではなくして、経済やあるいは市民レベル、スポーツや文化など、あらゆるこの分野において、両国の国民が対話を続ける努力をしていくことは大事だと思います。
Given this very tough situation, as you rightly mentioned, I think it's because of that that it is much more important for us to make effort to engage in dialogue. I'm not just talking about state-to-state dialogue here, but also in other fronts. For example, on the economy and also the people and sports, culture. So in various fields, I think that there should be efforts made to engage in dialogue.
その国との間の対話ということについても、ぜひそれぞれの国の国益のみならず、国際社会の平和と安定のためにも対話をするべきだということを訴え続けることは大事だと思います。
And therefore, I think that also in regards to the state-to-state, nation-to-nation dialogue, again, I think it is important for not only to consider the national interests, but also the fact that dialogue will contribute to international peace and stability. And it is important that we continue to appeal this.
日本の高市政権も対話が重要である、対話のドアはオープンであるということは言い続けていると承知をしています。ぜひこれが結果につながることを期待したいと思っています。
And I understand that the Takaichi administration is continuing to say that they think dialogue is important and Japan's door is open to dialogue. And so this is constantly being said, and I hope these efforts will lead to results.
ありがとうございました。
Tim Kelly.
Tim Kelly from Reuters. You talked about Japan championing international norms and international law. Would you say that the US upheld international law when it attacked Iran? And when an ally breaks international law and also takes actions that directly impact the national interests of Japan, do you think Japan should speak up or stay silent?
はい、ご質問ありがとうございました。アメリカが、国際法を破っているかどうかということについては、具体的な事実、私もすべて承知しているわけでないので、法的な判断をするのは難しいと思っています。
Well, thank you very much for the question. Now, whether or not the United States is violating international law, unfortunately, I do not have all the facts at hand, and so from a public position, it is difficult for me to make any specific statement here.
しかし、今のアメリカのトランプ政権の、外交の物差しは、アメリカファーストであり、自分の国にとって損か得かというのが物差しであるということを強く感じています。
However, having said that, I do strongly feel that looking at the current Trump administration, the yardstick that the U.S. is using in order to measure diplomacy is America first. And so the yardstick is such that whether or not it will benefit the United States is being used. So this is what I currently feel.
しかし、アメリカのその存在は、国際社会の平和と安定に大きな影響力を与えます。ですから、日本をはじめ多くの国々はアメリカと対話する際に、お互いウィンウィンの関係を作ることができるかという観点から、アメリカと賢く付き合っていかなければならない、こうしたことだと思います。
But still, of course, the United States' presence, this has a major influence on the international peace and stability, and therefore Japan and as well as many other countries in engaging with the United States through diplomacy are trying to look at the relations and approach based on whether or not it will lead to a win-win relationship.
しかし一方で、先ほども、私は、講演の中で申し上げたように、日本のような、島国、資源もない大きなマーケットを持たない国は、国際法をはじめとする、法の支配、あるいは多国間主義、さらには自由貿易、こういった理念原則が大事にされる国際社会でなければ生きていけないということです。そして日本のような立場にある国の方が国際社会の中では圧倒的に多いんだと思っています。なぜならば国際法というのは弱い国のためにこそあるものであると私は思っているからです。
But meanwhile, as I earlier stated, I think that given the fact that Japan is an island country, we are resource poor, and also we do not have such a large market. Therefore, it is important for us to see that the international society abides by international law, that the rule of law is upheld, and multilateralism and free trade prevail. It is important for Japan and countries like us that we have these principles and values in place. If not, Japan will not be able to survive in the international community. And I think that there are many countries like Japan which are in such a position. And I believe that international law is in place to protect those weak countries.
ですからアメリカに対してはその国益、アメリカに対してはしたたかに、うまく付き合っていくことをしながらも、一方で国際社会全体においては、法の支配とか、多国間主義とか、自由貿易という理念を大事にする国々を仲間として増やしていく、こういった努力、この両方を日本はしなければならないということを先ほど申し上げた次第です。
And therefore, talking about Japan, as I earlier stated, on the one hand, of course, we have to carefully and wisely address the United States and maintain a very good relationship. But at the same time, internationally, it is important to try to increase the number of like-minded countries which uphold the principle of the rule of law, as well as multilateralism and free trade amongst others. So this is what Japan should be making effort towards.
なぜならば、この地球温暖化問題ですとか、国際保健ですとか、防災ですとか、一国のみでは解決できない地球規模の課題というのはたくさんあるわけですから、多くの仲間を作ることが大事だということ、そしてその仲間をぜひ、法の支配や多国間主義といったこの理念を共有する仲間として作っていくことが大事だと思いますし、そしてそういった国々が集まって、そして共に繁栄するという国際社会が作っていかれるならば、力によって現状変更をしようとする大国も、やはりこういった国々と協力した方が自分も得だと思うようになれば、共に新しい国際秩序に加わってくれる、そういった国際秩序が未来に向けて作られていくことを日本は目指していくべきだと私は思っています。
The reason is because, first of all, we have issues that are common across all countries, for example, the global warming, and also the universal health issue and disaster prevention, amongst others. So, given these universal issues, it is important to try to increase the number of peers that we have, and to have these peers share the same values, such as the rule of law, multilateralism, and others. So, this is the type of relationship that we should attach importance wants to. And at the same time, we want to gather these people together so that we all can together all prosper. This is a type of international society that we need to try to create. And if so, then those countries which are thinking of changing the status quo by force, they would come to think that it would be better for them, more advantageous for them to cooperate with these countries. And should that thinking be shared, then we can have new countries joining this new international order. So I think that this is the sort of world that Japan should be striving and aiming to achieve.
Our guest has a very tight schedule, and this will be the final question. Please identify yourself and try to keep a short question.
ブルームバーグのテルキナです。アクティビスト投資家についてお伺いします。日本資産有利国を推進される中で、近年のアクティビスト投資家は日本の経営環境をどのように変化させてきたとご覧になっていますか。良い面と悪い面あれば、はい、お願いします。
Yes, a question from Bloomberg and about the activist investors, and I believe that recently the activists are quite vocal, and I'm wondering how their presence has changed the Japanese management.
はい、私は、総理大臣在任中からさまざまな政策に取り組みましたが、その一つとして資産運用立国という取り組みを進めてきました。
And as Prime Minister, I was promoting a number of policies, of which one was to make Japan a country in which asset management is key.
日本には2300兆円を超える家計金融資産があります。また、世界にあるこの大きなお金を日本に投資してもらう、こういったことで、国の内外のお金を活用して、そのことによって日本の金融を元気にしていく、経済を元気にしていく、こういった取り組みでありました。
To be more specific, here in Japan, we have a household asset around 2,300 trillion yen, and also there are a number of overseas investors wanting to invest in Japan. So we want to invite these, and so using these capital funds both in Japan as well as overseas, we want to revitalize and strengthen Japan's financial sector and also the economy.
その際にその金融や経済を動く主役は、企業です。その日本の企業が、この稼ぐ力をつけていくことが大事だというのは一つ大きなポイントであります。
And so in that respect, I think that the major players, the key players in both the financial as well as the economy are the corporations, the businesses here in Japan. And it is important that the Japanese businesses acquire the earning power. I think this is one important point that needs to be understood.
そして企業の在り方に関してご質問のあったアクティビストや投資家が影響を与えてきたのはその通りです。日本の企業をよりこの前向きに、そしてその積極的にしていくという意味で良い影響も与えていただいた。しかし一方でその日本の企業がそのアクティビストの影響によって経営の危機に陥るとか、売られてしまうとか、不本意な売られ方をしてしまうとか、そういったマイナスの影響もあるというのは事実であります。
Now, the activists, excuse me, the investors that you questioned here, and their impact on the businesses. Yes, as you mentioned, they have had positive impact on the businesses, so making the businesses more active. So that is one positive. But meanwhile, at the same time, the activists, some of them have put the Japanese companies in a state of crisis, on the verge of bankruptcy or being sold unintendedly. So there have been the negative impacts caused by activists as well.
アクティビストについてはさまざまな意見はあります。しかし今日本でやっていることは少なくとも海外の基準と合わせるところまでは持っていきましょうと いうことで、コーポレートガバナンス改革ですとか、法務省においては会社法の改正ですとか、少なくともグローバルな基準に日本のルールも合わせていくべく努力をしていくべきだという取り組みは今進められているところです。
But of course, there are different opinions vis-a-vis the activists, but at least here in Japan, we are trying to align with the overseas international standards here. So, for example, in Japan, we have seen the corporate governance reform take place, and also at the Justice Ministry, they have promoted the revision of the corporate law, and therefore, Japan has tried and made effort to align its rules to the global standard.
いずれにせよ、日本の企業が稼ぐ力を強めて、そして投資先として魅力的な存在になるためには、どういったルールがいいのか、どういった努力をしなければいけないか、こういった点で、この資産運用立国の取り組みは、これからも続けていきたいと思っています。
And it is important to strengthen the Japanese company's power to earn profit and also to increase its appeal so that the investors will consider investing in these companies. And so for that purpose, we have to think about what rules would be appropriate and what efforts need to be made. So Japan, we will make continued efforts to become the asset management-centered nation.
It is our custom of the Foreign Correspondents Club to offer all of our guests a one-year honorary membership. Mr. Prime Minister, we're very happy to do this again. We hope we see you more frequently at this auspicious place for you.
ありがとうございます。
Thank you very much. You can please remain seated until our guest leaves. Thank you very much.
ありがとうございました。はい、ありがとうございました。
All right, thank you.
Hey, what's your name?